Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel Cakes by MK. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to apply ganache to a cake, as well as how to get super sharp edges and really smooth sides without any kind of acrylic disc or cake card. If you're new to my channel, please click the subscribe button below and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so that you're updated whenever I upload a new video. Apart from that, stay tuned and I hope you guys enjoy this video. So the first step is to make our chocolate ganache, which we're going to be using as the icing of our cake. Now, when it comes to making a ganache, there is a key difference between making a white chocolate ganache or a milk and dark chocolate ganache. And the key difference here is in the ratios of heavy cream to chocolate that you use. So the two key ingredients in a ganache is chocolate and heavy cream. And today I'm making a white chocolate ganache, so I've got some white chocolate and some heavy cream. Now, when making a white chocolate ganache, the ratio that you want to use is 1 part heavy cream to 3 parts chocolate. And when it comes to either a milk or dark chocolate ganache, what you want to do is you want to use an equal ratio. So equal parts chocolate to equal parts heavy cream. Now for my cake today, I'm going to be making 2 different types of white chocolate ganache, one being just a regular white chocolate ganache and the second being a colored white chocolate ganache. Now the reason for that is because my outer layer of my cake is going to be a colored ganache, and I'm going to show you how to make that a little bit later. But first what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you how to make just a normal chocolate ganache with no coloring or anything like that. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to get my heavy cream, I'm going to pour it over my white chocolate. And now I'm just going to gently melt this in the microwave. So I'm just going to put it in for about 15-second bursts. Make sure you give it a mix in between each burst until it's basically fully melted. Now you can do this over a stove top as well, so over like a bain-marie. So you just need to gently heat the water and then place your bowl on top of that and then just let the steam gently melt your chocolate and cream. But yeah, I'm basically just going to go and pop this into the microwave now, and I'll be back once it's fully melted. So my white chocolate and heavy cream are nicely melted together now, and we're left with a beautiful silky smooth white chocolate ganache. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to pop this ganache aside for at least a few hours now, because we need it to thicken up so that it's thick enough to use as an icing on our cake. And before I do that, I'm just going to pop a bit of cling wrap on the top of my ganache so that it's touching the kind of, top of my ganache. And I'll show you how I do that now. And the reason for that is because that's going to stop this kind of skin from forming on the top of your ganache, so that when you come to mixing it later, it doesn't have kind of hard pieces inside your ganache. So just hold it on one end and then just kind of move the cling wrap down until it's touching the top using your hands. Okay, so the end product should look like that. So you've got this kind of ganache stuck underneath this cling wrap. And now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to set it aside, and I'm going to show you guys how I make my colored chocolate ganache now. So when it comes to my colored chocolate ganache, it's basically a white chocolate ganache again, so exactly the same thing that I did earlier. So I've got 1 part heavy cream to 3 parts chocolate, and I will have the quantities below. And I'm simply just going to melt the chocolate ganache in exactly the same way that I did with my first batch. So I'm just going to pour my heavy cream over my chocolate, and then pop that into the microwave for, like 20-second bursts, and make sure you're mixing it in between each burst, and then I'm going to be back once it's all melted. So I've got my second batch of chocolate ganache all nicely melted now, and it's nice and silky smooth. And now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding some gel colors to my ganache. Now you do want to make sure that you're not using liquid colors, because this can change the consistency of your ganache. So gel colors will be the best, because you only need, a few drops to get that nice deep color. And, they're quite thick in consistency as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going for a kind of deep green look. So I'm going to add a bit of white first to get rid of that kind of yellow undertone. And then I'm going to add some green and blue food coloring until I am happy with the look. Now I'm just adding in a tiny bit of blue, and I may also add a tiny bit of black just to get that nice deep color. Okay, so I have played around with the color of my ganache quite a bit now, so I'm going to stop there. So what I've ended up with is a nice greeny kind of blue color, which I'm quite happy with, and it's got a really nice kind of deep color to it. So that is another tip for you guys, that if you are looking for deep colors, then add a few drops of black food coloring, and that'll help to kind of just deepen the color. Just don't add too much, otherwise it'll make it kind of gray, and you know, that's not what you want. Now, just before I finish, one thing I forgot to mention was when it comes to the ratios of chocolate to heavy cream, just make sure that you are measuring them in grams and not in kind of cups or spoons. Or if you are going to measure them in cups and spoons, just make sure that you're converting the correct grams, you know, and the equivalents correctly. So just to clarify that a little bit, if you're a bit confused, so what I mean to say is, you know, 1 cup of chocolate is not the same weight as 1 cup of heavy cream. And so that does not actually equate to equal parts. So in the case of, say, a milk or dark chocolate, you can't just simply, you know, get a 1 cup, you know, measuring cup and put 1 cup of heavy cream and 1 cup of chocolate. It's not going to, you know, equate to the correct amounts that you need. So just make sure that you are measuring them in grams, because what you want to have, say, for the milk or dark chocolate is you want to have, say, 50 grams chocolate to 50 grams heavy cream. Or in the case of white chocolate, you want to have, say, 60 grams heavy cream to 180 grams chocolate, so that you've got that 1 to 3 ratio. So just keep that in mind. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to cover this up just like how I did with the previous batch of chocolate ganache, just to stop that kind of skin from developing on the top. And then I'm going to let these set aside for the rest of the day now, and then we'll be back to start covering our cake. So my ganache has been sitting for about 7 hours or so now, and as you can see, it's a nice thick consistency now, which is going to allow us to use it as an icing for our cake. So what I've got here is I've got 2 banana cakes, and I have already put simple syrup on both of them. And if you're not sure what simple syrup is, then I'll post a link below to a short video which I've done explaining what it is. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put my first layer on, and I've got an acrylic disc here as my cake board. And I'm just going to add a little bit of the ganache to the center of the cake board, just to act as like a glue to stick my first layer of cake on. And then I'm going to place my first layer on like that, and just make sure that it's in the middle of your cake board. And now next I'm going to place some of the chocolate ganache on the top of my first layer. And then I'm going to place my next layer of cake on top, except I'm going to flip it over so that the bottom of my cake is the top of my layer cake, just so that we have a nice flat top. Now once that's nicely placed into the middle, you can now finish off your crumb coat. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get the remaining ganache, I'm going to spread some over the top and around the entire cake, just a nice thin layer to trap all those crumbs, and then our crumb coat is done. Now I'm just going to finish off by smoothing out my crumb coat with a cake scraper. So now that my crumb coat is all done, I'm going to pop this cake into the fridge for about half an hour to an hour, just to allow the ganache to become really nice and firm, and then we're going to come back and put our final layer of ganache over the top. So my crumb coated cake is out of the fridge now, the ganache is nice and firm, so now I'm going to go ahead and put my final layer of ganache on. Now what I've got here is the coloured ganache that I also made earlier, which has nicely thickened up, and what I'm going to do first is I'm going to cover my entire cake with a thick layer of this ganache, and then I'm going to just smooth it out really gently using my cake scraper. And just make sure not to scrape too much off, because when we come to doing our last part, which is getting super sharp edges, we need to have a decent layer of, ganache on the cake. Okay, now once you have generally smoothed out the ganache on your cake, don't worry about it being perfect. You know, if it's got a few lines or holes around your cake, don't worry about it, because we do have one more step, and that step is to pop the cake again back into the fridge for about an hour or two to allow the outer layer of ganache to become really nice and firm. And then we're going to come back one last time and then smooth out the cake again with our cake scraper. And this is what's going to then reveal a beautiful, smooth and sharp edged cake. Now once your ganache is out of the fridge and it's really nice and firm, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to scrape it again with a cake scraper. Now this time when we scrape the ganache, it's almost going to be like you're carving into the cake. And what this is going to do is it's going to reveal a really smooth finish on your cake, and it's going to give us those nice sharp edges as well. So I'm going to start off by scraping off the top until I get a nice smooth top, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the sides. Okay, so I'm happy with how it looks now, and that is basically it. So you're left with a beautiful cake with super sharp edges and really smooth sides. I hope you guys enjoyed this video on how to apply ganache to a cake, as well as how to get super smooth sides and super sharp edges. Please like and subscribe for more videos like this, and thanks again for watching Cakes by MK.